I don't usually take exception to any particular article of The Guardian comment is free section because the articles are so consistently stupid, especially the feminist articles. They are so poorly thought out, so lacking in empirical evidence, and retardedly stupid that it's hard to take exception to a single article. That is until today, where I found an article so unbelievably retarded that I had to make this video. It is called "Is It Anti-Feminist to Watch the World Cup" by Wakefield. There is bunting across the street where I live. My local pub goes from pin drop quiet to eruptions of excitement. Still warm and fuzzy from the joy of the Olympics 2 years ago, I hanker to enjoy an emotional ride with spectators again. But the World Cup is different. As is the Tour de France. There is no Jessica Ennis or Victoria Paddleton, I have no idea who they are by the way, to aspire to or to root for, because the events include male competitors only. Wait, so you can only get behind a World Cup if it's got female competitors? You can only get behind a sporting event because it's got female competitors? Isn't that a bit, sexist? There is bunting across the street where I live. My local pub goes from pin drop quiet to eruptions of excitement. Still warm and fuzzy from the joy of the Olympics 2 years ago, I hanker to enjoy an emotional ride with spectators again. But the World Cup is different. As is the Tour de France. There is no Jessica Ennis or Victoria Paddleton, I have no idea who they are by the way, to aspire to or to root for, because the events include male competitors only. Wait, so you can only get behind a World Cup if it's got female competitors? You can only get behind a sporting event because it's got female competitors? Isn't that a bit, sexist? This puts me in a quandary. Men's football is loved in Britain simply because the players are men. Oh really? Isn't that a bit sexist of you? There's nothing to do with merit in there. And men like watching other men play football. And what men like to do and like to watch is de facto important. Even the fact that the Men's World Cup is not explicitly stated to be a men's competition, it raises women. I predict there will be little fuss made of the Women's World Cup in Canada next year. That's because it's crap and nobody cares about it. So do we women sideline ourselves by boycotting the games, or do we take up space and follow it along because it's fun and exciting? Really? You're going to boycott it because it has men? Isn't that a bit sexist? Are you going to boycott the women's games in next year? I don't think so. You could argue the FIFA World Cup is also ageist and disableist. Footballers are doomed to retire as soon as the wisdom teeth fully descend and disabled people are tacitly excluded. Let's not forget that a former England coach was even slapped by his dodgy views. I think this is Glenn Hoddle. And there is a difference in football's relationship with women. Why? She doesn't say. No citation there. That's just an opinion. And as for it being disableist, there are, for instance, there's blind football. You can play football if you're blind. They use a special ball. So the FA have gone out of their way to help disabled footballers and women as well, because the BBC throws women's football down our bloody throats. If you go on the BBC website, they're always reporting women's football, even though nobody gives a fucking shit about it. I always see articles on the BBC news page about women's football, and sometimes they are misleading. For instance, I'll say Arsenal coach resigns, and then you think, oh, that must be Arsene Wenger, but no, it's the women's football team. So this is just simply not true. Instead of boycotting football, the presence of women is key to breaking the uninterrupted cycle of sexism. Any woman who has been humiliated by sexual bullying or harassment by groups of men knows it's the exclusion of women that fosters the male bond and makes it easy to stereotype us as gash, wags and nags. The mockney trinity of beer, birds and football has been uniting men in retro-sexism across all divides in politics and class since the 1990s, and this needs to end. I love the way these feminists are so conflicted about watching something that they enjoy, such as male football, and they have to make a big deal about it because feminism, the ideology of feminism, has to infiltrate anything that they enjoy, and just it's absolutely incredible. I mean, she talks about the exclusion of women. No, that you're not excluded. You can join football. You can watch from the stand. The reason why there's no female footballers in the male football league is because you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough. It's just incredible. And she talks about the stereotype of calling them nags. Well, you are nagging. You're infiltrating a space which is male majority, not to be confused with male dominated. And you're basically coming in and saying, well, we need to make all these exceptions. We need to, this needs to be feminized. And it's just, it's like, for instance, female gyms. Some gyms discriminate against men by having female-only hours, thus shortchanging men. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, The Guardian, for instance, has a female-only section on the website. There's no male section for that. So it's just, it's segregation for they can have segregation for women. There's no segregation for men. Everything has to be infiltrated, according to the feminists. In the final paragraph, she talks about how women should steer the conversation from male football to female football in order to promote it, and also ask if they are going to go to the World Cup in Canada, which I think they'll probably say, fuck no, I don't give a shit, I don't really care that much, which is fair enough because, like I said, female football just isn't as good as male football. It probably never will be because there's a physical limit for women. But anyway, you're entitled to do that. You can do that. That's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. You can hype up your own game, whatever you want. Just stop using the BBC to promote a game, a sport that just isn't in demand. I mean, for instance, if you look at the BBC, for instance, there are certain sports that do not get in the BBC because there's just not the same popular demand. In fact, there are some sports on the BBC that I think should not be on the BBC because it's just not popular enough. But it's this kind of social engineering that really, it's just kind of irritating. The fact that everything has to be equal, just very irritating. And again, you can do whatever you want. You can steer the conversation to female football all you want. In fact, I welcome that. But don't make it sound like some kind of patriarchal conspiracy when men's football is more popular than female football. So that's all I can think of right now. Thanks for listening again.